Continuing along the stomach channel with stomach 35, we have calf's nose, also known as lateral Shion. This is a wonderful point to treat for any issue involving the patella. This is a point that can be needled in 3 different directions. You can needle it posteriorly and relatively deeply towards bladder 40. You can also needle it medially and superiorly to treat issues of cold and damp beneath the patella itself. And you can also needle it a little bit deeply, but also transversely towards medial Shion underneath the patellar ligament. This is a phenomenal point to needle deeply and then put moxa on the needle to bring warmth and heat to stimulate the chi and blood circulation underneath the patella, underneath that ligament. So obviously this is really good for any kind of wind cold or wind damp issue affecting the knee. So this is going to manifest as stiffness, pain upon bending. A lot of times people have trouble going up and down stairs, especially up. And then you would combine this with points along the rectus femoris muscle, maybe even the hamstring, or people going down the stairs. This has more to do with stability rather than strength. Going up the stairs is more about strength. Going down the stairs is a little bit more about stability. So you can combine this with medial Shion, which is right opposite calf's nose. And you can needle them angled directly together towards one another. You can also angle both towards bladder 40, 54 in the Worsley system. Again, highly encourage you, and any time where there's not a tremendous amount of inflammation, if there's not a lot of inflammation under this point, which would be warm to touch, redness, other signs of heat, right? Swelling, of course, maybe from a recent traumatic injury. So if they're in the stage 1 of trauma for an injury like that, I wouldn't necessarily do a lot of moxa under here. You could do a little bit, 1 or 2, indirect moxa on the needle. But this is a great point to do and combined with bladder 40 and other points on the lower leg that support the stability of the knee, such as working on motor points for the gastrocnemius and the soleus and the tibialis anterior. So this is a nice combination to do for people with a lot of instability in the knee. So again, really great to moxa on the needle. I generally do it more for the physical characteristics of the point. I don't really do a whole lot in terms of psychological aspects or spirit level aspects, but you can certainly make the case that the knee provides us strength and stability, has a lot to do with and sort of manifests the strength of the kidneys. So you can certainly do it in support of that in that way. And then going next to stomach 34, the Shi cleft point, beam mound, also known as Liang Chu. This is a fantastic point as the Ji cleft point on the stomach channel, which is part of the Yang Ming division. And as you know, the Yang Ming is replete with qi and blood. So this is a great point to do when there's some stagnation as a result of deficiency or excess. And I often combine this with a lot of other points when there's pain anywhere in the lower body from the waist or hips down. This is like the Shi cleft point of Shi cleft points. So this is really good for any type of stagnation leading to B obstruction syndrome. Obviously, the stagnation is from some kind of external pathogenic factor invasion, wind cold, damp phlegm. So this is a nice point to combine with a lot of other points, not just if you're treating someone as an earth CF. You know, you can certainly do this as a combination of other Shi cleft points on other meridians. So maybe somebody's a wood CF and you want to do the Shi cleft on gallbladder and maybe liver as well. You can certainly add this if there's some kind of pain or discomfort that's a result of some type of qi or blood obstruction in the low body. This is also similarly a great point to do for anyone that's experiencing some kind of stagnation on a mental or spirit level. For example, someone is stuck in a certain frame of mind or a certain perspective, or is stuck in old stories, old tapes about themselves, about their life, about their situation. Maybe someone who's constantly stuck in complaint. This is on the earth This is on the earth channel of the stomach, right, related to the earth element. So this is really good for somebody who feels stuck in a story or some picture around not having enough abundance. Again, as a G-clef point, this opens us up to the abundance that's available. Nice to combine also with stomach 40, and can be combined with the outer bladder line point on the stomach for people who feel stuck in this state of not having enough, not being able to be enough, to provide enough. Maybe they're not able to feel that they can't give enough. People who are giving too much, they don't know how to set boundaries. But particularly for people who feel very malnourished, or that, you know, they get a lot of support around them, but, you know, it just isn't quite right. It isn't quite what they need. You know, people don't really know, you know, they mean well, but they don't really understand me. They don't really get me. So this is a great point on a mental emotional level for people who are kind of stuck in a state of neediness, or a sensation that, or a perception that, you know, they'll never get their needs met. This is also on one last bit in terms of the physical level aspect of things, right? The beam mound, right? This is the referring to the muscles, the lower part of the muscles that stabilize the knee, right? The vastus lateralis in particular, as well as the other muscles, the rectus femoris, the sartorius, the gracilis, the semitendinosus. These muscles help to stabilize the knee. So this is a deep in the muscle. So this is a point that you can do into the muscle to help stimulate and strengthen, along with other points around the knee and the muscles of the knee, to stabilize and strengthen the knee. So this helps with both going up the stairs and down the stairs. So stomach 33, yin market. This is a point that I generally, more often than not, do for the physical level aspects of the point. You know, it's said to dispel wind damp from the channel and to alleviate pain. And the reason why it's said to alleviate pain is basically that there's some kind of de-obstruction syndrome from wind damp that has damaged the sinew meridians of the muscles that go through this area. So this is a nice adjunct point, which you can combine with other points like stomach 34, maybe the hussy point, maybe even like spleen 10, which is sort of on the same level as stomach 34, but on the medial side of the thigh. So this is a nice point to support the work that you're doing to clear any kind of external pathogenic factor or external pathogenic factor like issue affecting the leg and the thigh in particular. With stomach 32, crouching rabbits. This is obviously, for those of you who have studied 5-element acupuncture, this is one of the points in the Worsley combination for treating possession, which is releasing the 7 dragons upon the 7 devils or 7 demons. In this case, the 7 demons would be the 7 internal pathogenic factors, the 7 internal causes of disease, the emotions, the 7 emotions that are out of balance. But in this case, to the point where the imbalance is so severe and so deeply ingrained in the person's energy system that it obscures the ability of the person to be fully present to what's happening, to be able to move through the waves of these emotions. They get stuck in either in one particular emotion or maybe in many emotions. So they may be on the excess side, much more reactive, much more manic, much not just angry, but enraged, not just sad, but goes into despair, not just worry, but goes into like obsession or obsessive compulsive behaviors, right? They might not just be fearful, they might be panicked and terrified, right? Or on the flip side, paranoid, right? On the metal, dealing with the grief, they might be desperately forlorn, maybe even suicidal. Same with the liver. You know, the opposite of anger outwards is anger inwards, depression, hopelessness, despair. So, you know, obviously this type of Shen disturbance is going to run along a continuum, and that can go from anywhere from, you know, just like edge of the wedge of the issue where someone is able to function fairly well throughout their daily life, but they're relatively more on autopilot. And then when it comes time to be able to experience a variety of emotions, are kind of locked into one or are very divorced from their capacity to experience all of them or many of them. And what you'll notice in looking at their eyes is that they may seem vacant. They may not seem very responsive. They may seem hidden and have retreated within themselves. Oftentimes, they'll look like they're on autopilot. And when they respond to you either verbally or through their facial expressions, it seems very reactive or dull or listless or lifeless, kind of the lights on, nobody home experience. Or they may be suddenly going along, seeming somewhat normal and content, but not deeply content. You know, there's not the sense of deep sincerity in terms of how they experience life. But all of a sudden, you say something or something happens, and then they fly off the handle. They go deeply into and very excessive expression of a certain emotion. So these are all signs of Shen disturbance, Shen buried, Shen suppressed, Shen disoriented, mind unsettled, right? There's a lot of different terms in Chinese medicine. So this is one of the 7 points that you would do to liberate the Shen by clearing out whatever emotional pathogenic factor that has gotten a hold of the person and they can't be responsive to life in a healthy way. So in addition to that way of looking at it, it is a point that is very good, like 33 and 34, dispelling wind damp, activating the channel, which means it stimulates a quality of movement of qi through the thigh. So this is a nice point you can do and combine with other points, again, similar to 33 and 34. Not as powerful, I think, as 34, but is also very good at stimulating the qi flow and circulation through the thigh, helping us to spring forward, to move in life. This is a nice point to combine also, like I said, with stomach 34 or even stomach 36. People who have the wind damp has settled either in a physical level, creating stiffness, heaviness, maybe even numbness if it's chronic and severe, an inability to really activate the muscles in their leg to be able to move and to walk with power and grace. And so on a psychological level, on a spirit level, these are people who have kind of like stuck in the mud in life. Maybe again, combined with other points that help liberate these stories of feeling stuck, feeling heavy, life can't change, there's no opportunity for things to be different. So again, like that stuck in the mud kind of feeling. So with stomach 31, thigh joint or thigh gate, this is a powerful point. Also, like 32 and 33 and 34, it's said to activate the channel and alleviate pain and to dispel wind damp. So again, it's a very similar nature and characteristic. So you might be saying, well, how do I choose between, say, 33, 32, and 31? As always, palpation, palpation, palpation. Feel along the channel, feel these points, press into them with varying degrees of pressure. Notice if one is particularly more assure with the patient, perhaps something about the way the point feels under your finger, under your thumb, that calls out to you. Maybe it's excessively yielding, maybe it's excessively tight or tense or hard or overly, there's less resilience to it. It feels hard, maybe in spasm. Maybe you also feel nodules or some kind of what like Kiko Matsumoto refers to as gummies. You know, you feel something underneath the surface of the skin or attached to the skin or maybe deeper in the layers of the fascia that seems stuck. So you can certainly do this point as well as points above and below. I found to be very helpful. Also combined with stomach 34, right? It's a fantastic point to combine with other points along the channel, anywhere where there's accumulations for whatever reason, right? Deficiency leads to stagnation, stagnation leads to deficiency, depending on the trajectory of the channel. You know, that deficiency may be upstream, leading to problems downstream, or the problem may be down here in the thigh, creating problems higher up in the hip, okay? But either way, stomach 31, thigh joint, thigh gate is a great point to treat for any kind of pain, stiffness, heaviness, weakness, even numbness or tingling in that area. Oftentimes people will experience lumbar pain that wraps around to the front of the body anteriorly. So this is a nice point to combine with other points in the back to help the chi and the blood circulate, especially for sciatica. Again, there's several different types of sciatica. One type of sciatica, which is, I believe, where there's some sort of a nerve root problem between, say, L3 and L4. Sometimes this will send a radiating pain from the back around the hip into the groin or through the front anterior portion of the hip, going down the stomach channel. So this is often between L3 and L4. There's some kind of problem there. So this is a nice point to combine with that. This is also obviously a point used for clearing wind damp. So any type of B obstruction syndrome affecting the stomach channel, like the sciatica I mentioned before, it might be a localized issue. It could be something that actually starts as a menstrual disorder and then spreads out through the inguinal region, across the groin, outwards, laterally to the hip, into the leg. So this is often a nice point to combine with that to get the chi moving powerfully through this area of the body in support of internal organ disharmonies that are based on some type of wind or wind damp or phlegm condition in this area. And as you know, anything that manifests as damp can show up as weakness, numbness, muscle flaccidity. Again, earth is in the control of the muscles and control of the flesh. So the fascia may feel very weak, very maybe we notice a loss of tonicity of the muscle tissue and the fascia in that area. And the problems can even extend, again, like I mentioned, down to the knee, even down into the lower leg. All right, stomach 30, chi surging, chi rushing or rushing chi. This is a very underutilized point. From a Worsley's perspective, this is a part of the sea of nourishment, which you can combine with stomach 36. Again, when treating the C's, you would moxa or needle all the points on the left first, and then the points on the right. So you would do stomach 30 on the left, stomach 36 on the left to tonify. Then you would do points on the stomach 30 and 36 on the right. And then if you wanted to sedate, although I don't know why you would want to sedate it, but if your intuition or signs and symptoms guide you to do that, then certainly you can try that. That would be points on the right, then the left, although I would highly encourage you to stick with tonification because most people are experiencing a deficiency of nourishment. And of course, these are powerful chi and blood points. As you know, as we've mentioned, stomach is part of the yang-meng pair, which is said to be abundant in chi and blood. So this is a great point to support a patient who is experiencing any kind of malnourishment on any level of the body, mind, spirit. And it's also a good point to treat for any kind of excess or deficiency in the stomach official. It could be hypogastric pain, bloating, abdominal pain, a sense of intense fullness just after eating, as well as rebellious chi, right? Acid reflux, GERD, inguinal hernia, excuse me, not inguinal, hiatal hernias. So these are a nice way to treat within other combinations, any of these conditions. It's also a point along Chong Mai. So the location of this point, like right at the groin, obviously this is a place where the leg meets the torso. And so there's a quality of transition of the way the chi flows. It's going, from the center into the periphery, right? And so this is a powerful point on Chong Mai that has a lot of benefits for uniting how we reach out into the world for what we need, and then how we bring that back into ourselves, right? And so as a point on the Chong Mai, this has a lot to do with the flow of blood as well as chi. That has a lot to do with our identity, right? Chong Mai is said to have to do with the blueprint of our life, right? And blood is the matrix of our consciousness in physical form. And obviously that houses the Shen. So this is a nice point in combination with other points, especially in terms of opening the Chong Mai, right, using spleen 4 and pericardium 6, to help somebody step into and understand their individual needs based on their unique, authentic identity, not based on some story about who they are, not based on some fantasy about who they'd like to be or how they'd like to be. Also, we have a lot of pictures of how we don't like to be. We judge ourselves for how we are. And so this, again, Earth is about comfort. It's about savoring the hard work, right? So we can enjoy the fruits of our labors. So this is also about integration, right? Stomach and spleen together help us to integrate our experiences in life, our thoughts, our ideas, as well as the nourishment that we get from taking in food and water and ingesting that and digesting it. And we hopefully get the goods from that. And hopefully the goods are transported by the spleen to every corner of our kingdom. So the Chong Mai, especially at this point, combined with this point, stomach 30, is really good for helping us to integrate our past, to integrate our ideas about who we are, so we can see ourselves more clearly and authentically and settle into that in a comfortable way. How do we support ourselves being more comfortable in our skin, to be more comfortable with our particular nature, our way of thinking, our way of seeing the world, our way of experiencing life, right? So this is a powerful point. And when for supporting the nourishing aspects of all of these themes, right? To allow our own identity to nourish us in a way, right? To get sustenance from our own way of being in the world, with our own nature. And that in and of itself is a gift that we can then give to others, right? But we need to be able to step out into the world in a powerful way, right? And that's what is afforded us by the ability, that's what afforded us by the strength and the nature of the muscles in our thighs and lower abdomen, right? So as you all know, it's hard to get up out of bed. It's hard to get up off the floor without using your abdominal muscles. And again, this is where the abdominal muscles and the thigh muscles meet. So this is a very powerful point that allows us to, like the Chong Mai, to surge onwards, right? To persevere in the face of discomfort.